Welcome to another episode of Omni Athlete. You're here because you believe that you can be more. We created this show and company to do it with you by empowering your performance with the wisdom and techniques of the world's highest achieving mind, body, and spirit competitors. Okay, so today's guest is a former professional hockey player who transitioned out of the NHL to take off the mask of enforcer and lean into the spiritual path unfolding in front of him. As an entrepreneur, speaker, coach, cannabis advocate, and healer, he has dedicated his second career to paving a path forward for athletes looking to reconnect to their authentic self. He's the founder of the Hemp Heals Foundation, a co-founder of Athletes for Care, and launched Body Check Wellness, a line of hemp-based personal care products whose mission is to optimize everyday performance and challenge individuals to rethink the healing process. It's my pleasure to introduce to Omni Athlete, Riley Cote. Welcome to the show, Riley.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Well said. Couldn't have said it better myself.
It was fun doing the research for this episode, Riley. I don't know whether it is where you are in your journey or whether it's just the fact that I've been reading more about healers and kind of this earth-based medicine. But the word that jumped out at me to start with is just that you're a healer. Like that seems super authentic. Where does that take you?
Yeah, you know what? It's been part of really my spiritual journey and kind of recognizing really where I fit in this world and how I can have the most impact. And I've discovered that I have the ability to help people, influence the way they think. And healing is it's subjective, but it really starts with the individual's desire to heal. So nothing more than really kind of planting a spark and inspiring people to kind of take ownership of their own health and be accountable is really what it is. I mean, it's like the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink it type of deal. It's, I'm not going to magically touch someone on the shoulder and they're going to be healed. It's nothing like that, but it's really kind of more just, using my story and my communication skills to help people find themselves. And once they do that, they are in control and they have the power to heal themselves. And, it's nothing more than that. So it's just, it's just really a mindset, but there's obviously more to it than that, but it's really about being accountable and, again, taking ownership of your own health.
So that word accountability comes up a lot, right? And what does that mean to you in kind of the context of healing, but then also in sport too?
Sure. I mean, accountability for me is cause and effect. It's the law of vibrations, law of karma. So, we get what we give, and most people don't want to be accountable. They don't want to look inside themselves and admit fault or take ownership on a mistake or something bad that happened in their lives. They want to blame. They want to push the energy elsewhere. For me, it wasn't easy to do. There's self-reflection and looking inside and being honest with yourself and you kind of evaluating and scanning your life and being honest with your mistakes and your decision making. It's not easy to do, but once you do it and you're accountable, you take the ownership of your own life and you use that kind of that self-analysis to project yourself forward. It's a powerful thing, but I think I don't know what it is. We live in the society now where it's just, it's soft. There's unaccountable behavior. Silver spooners. Just people expect, but they don't want to put in the work into it. So it much mimics the sports world. It's it's a mindset, and it's powerful because it could go either way. And I think. Most people's minds are the worst enemy, and it really gives us an honest opportunity to really be in the driver's seat of life and in sport is because we are accountable for our outcomes. Good or bad or indifferent, it's the law of karma. It's cause and effect, and it's energies, the people you put around yourself and surround yourself with. It's the food you put in your body. It's are you drinking at night or not drinking at night? Are you getting rest? You're not getting rest? They all have either positive or negative impacts on your life. And over time, it's, you kind of become your daily behavior. So there's a lot to it, but it's nothing more than changing the way you think and kind of thinking what you want to become before you become it. Or even if you're subconsciously, not thinking of becoming anything, you generally are not going to amount to a whole lot or have a whole lot of success because you don't have any definitive purpose and you don't have the proper direction that you want to head in. So it's all about controlling the mind and the thoughts.
So there's this, like, I think sport in general, as athletes, there's a perception that we build accountability, right? And that we build that mindset into the way that we view the world. And I think sometimes that is taken for granted. And it's not always true that we understand accountability in a more global or holistic sense outside of maybe the accountability of, if I don't make this play, make this shot, make this block, whatever the case may be, use this strike move here, there's an accountability of action that may or may not occur. But on this kind of more of the mindset level, and then also on the energetic level, it seems like it's taken for granted that accountability just is developed in sport, and it doesn't always feel like it is.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I think the accountability of sport, a lot of it has to do with your behaviors and execution, but ultimately it's the coach calls the last shot, or the GM calls the last shot, and unless you're a superstar, and it doesn't matter how many mistakes you make, you're always going to play. Though that will impact whether you play the next night, or your performance or your confidence level. That the coach really shouldn't dictate, but he has a tendency to dictate players' confidence levels based on how he manages them. But in the real world, I think there's no coach. There's no GM. You are both of those as well as the player. So it all comes down to you. There's no outside circumstance that can really truly affect your spiritual growth. Yes, there's going to be hardships. There's going to be adversity. That's just part of life. Everybody goes through that. To the extent it's a little bit different, but nonetheless, every person goes through that stuff. And I look at I see it most when you talk about diet. The accountability of what you put in your body and how you feed your temple. And most people just want to blame genetics. It's easy to do that. It's easy to blame something down the road, and we'll just patch it up with a pharmaceutical drug or a treatment. We'll cut out an organ, or whatever the case may be. And to me, I look at diet as food and beverage is the most important part of environment. And I don't know where I read it. It was, if you can master your food and beverage, you can master anything, because it just shows how much self-discipline you have. You control everything that goes in your body, and then you can control everything that goes in your headspace. And the Western world, we've industrialized food. It's easy to really fall off the path with the synthetic, artificial food that really serves no purpose than just creating an addiction and feeding us empty calories, and we're just craving nutrients. So I think it's easy to fall on that, the diet path, which gets most people off. It's like a legal addiction. You got refined sugar in most foods, and it really does impact the brain in a negative way. And it's a legal vice. You can go to any convenience store, any grocery store, and buy this. And I think that ends up changing people's brain chemistry and behavior and moods. I mean, so the diet one to me is the kicker. And most people, again, they don't want to be accountable with that because they want to eat the crap. It tastes good. Right. It's comforting, and it fills that void that they want to temporarily, eliminate. And I think that one is not talked about. We always want to talk about illicit drugs, illegal drugs, and and this. And yeah, there's a problem with a lot of legal drugs, and there's certainly a problem with some illegal drugs. But something being illegal doesn't necessarily mean it's bad for you. And then vice versa is a lot of these legal vices. If you look at tobacco, and you look at caffeine and alcohol and refined sugar. I mean, refined sugar to me is the definition of a Schedule I drug. No medicinal value and highly addictive. And you look around, and it's got most people by the balls. It's got them. It's gripped them, and people can't detach. But the diet to me is the one that you have to master. Otherwise, food will always control you, specifically the sugar.
So where did that journey start for you? And this may dovetail a little bit into just the story of your career and transition in general too, which is great. And the reason I'm asking this question too, Riley, is I can feel on you such a clarity of the different forces that shaped maybe what was a different view in a different time for you, and the ability to kind of pull those apart now and say, I see these things that are working against what may be in my best interest, my natural health, my natural state. What was that progression like for you? Like, what started it, and then what's allowed you to stay on that path?
Sure. It was honestly the day I decided to retire in 2010. There had been some, emotional thoughts and, some spiritual stuff happening leading up to that. I was at a crossroads of my life and career at the age of 28, believe it or not. Physical injuries and, some concussion stuff from fighting. And it kind of all came to a head, and I wanted an exit strategy so bad. I wanted to stop the party. As hard as I went on the ice, I went just as hard off the ice. I needed an exit strategy. So, it's kind of one of those things. You put these thoughts, you emotionalize these thoughts out there, and something kind of comes in return. And that off season, I got a phone call from our general manager at the time, and he had offered me an assistant coaching job for the Philadelphia Flyers minor league team in the American Hockey League. And it was kind of like a light went off, and it's like such an easy decision. Something I'd worked so hard to get to where I got. It was such an easy decision for me to get out when I had that opportunity, because it was almost like, when you say, God answering your prayers type of deal. It was kind of like this was equivalent to that, in my spiritual journey, where it was kind of like, here is your exit strategy. Here is the beginning of your new life, for me. So that was the beginning of my so-called, awakening. But it started with the diet. I started getting into plant-based proteins, specifically hemp protein. That was really kind of got me into the cannabis and hemp space. Really focusing on the digestibility, not just, the amount of protein I was putting in my shake, that mindless behavior of just consumerism, and, really taking pride in quality and digestibility. And I also got into removing refined sugars, refined carbohydrates from my diet, and sticking to the raw honey, and, really kind of simplifying where I was getting my energy source and nutrients from. And, that was really the beginning. It started with the diet, and then that the diet kind of evolved into, learning about Eastern medicine and learning about, essential oils and, all these other gifts from Mother Nature that we kind of forget about and, put on the back burner and exploit really, through pharmaceuticals and the rest of Western medicine. So it was all contagious. It was really that, that decision to retire and make change. It was like a declaration, like, I'm changing. This is my exit strategy. Now I'm on the other side of the fence. I'm still mimicking the same schedule I was as a player, but I was a coach, so I didn't hang out with the players. I didn't party. And so that, I stopped drinking for a full year, didn't have a sip. It was just kind of like, I needed to detach from this lifestyle. I needed to detach from these things that were kind of, I say, defining me, but, I guess they arguably they were. I mean, it's, you go out for beers all the time after games. It's, well, you're now a regular drinker. And, you know what I mean? That was the way I was coping with stress. And, again, I was all about eating calories. I was fighting. I was, gaining weight to move up a weight class in hockey as an enforcer in hockey, and, mindless calories, just eating and protein, and, you know what I mean? And it's just, again, it's not sustainable. You look at UFC fighters, arguably the most mindful athletes, as well as probably the best trained overall athlete. And, they cut weight to move down a weight class. You know what I mean? Efficiency, quickness. And again, a lot of the stuff I was doing was just not sustainable. And, the physical body can only go so far. That was my moneymaker. And eventually when that breaks down, it's kind of like, well, now what? What are you? You've been a hockey player / fighter your whole life. And now where do you fit in? And so, not that it was by design, it kind of just naturally evolved, but I believed in something bigger than myself, which was Mother Nature. And I think that just kind of took me down these different paths of healing, really.
Did you experience any anger in that process around what had been one of the posts that you made recently that sparked this follow-up interview, right? Was this idea that we've been lied to on a very large cultural systemic level. And I know for a lot of us as athletes, when we get out of sport, or at least just get that breathing room, there is a lot of intense emotion that comes up around why has this been allowed to be just the way that it is? So did you experience any of that anger as you transitioned and saw these different pieces? And what did you do with it when you did experience it?
I did. I went through a pretty long period of being pissed off. I think I was fortunate enough to be able to harness my energies and use my emotions in a positive way. I'm grateful for my health and mental health. Obviously, it comes in conjunction with the things I'm doing to promote these things. But I see a lot of guys that are really in a dark path. So I'm thankful for that. And I just use my story and my experience, even though there is some negativity in there and some darkness in there, I wouldn't be able to tell my story or promote what I'm promoting without seeing that darkness. So if you were to ask me if I would ever change anything, well, no, I would, everything I did was by design, would happen for a reason to get me where I needed to be. I mean, it could have very well gone the other way, but I was forced in a corner to make a decision to change direction. But there's certainly things I look back on and now when I teach and I, really kind of talk about my philosophy with things, there's a lot of things I could lay out that, I did so many things wrong, And now I just want to help the young athlete or the young individual not make those mistakes. You're going to make mistakes, but just don't make the stupid ones that, I've made. And, for me and my story, that's just part of it. I needed to make those to get where I needed to be. So, it's life has a funny way of working itself out sometimes. I always say, the universe kind of pushed me around. It was like, well, eventually if you screw around with the universe long enough, it will push you around. You know what I mean? And then you gotta make a decision. Are you going to, keep going against the grain, or are you going to start working with the universe? And I think, all of the things I did wrong eventually caught up to me. And then all at once kind of like, I had this big kind of like aha moment of like, I am in control of my destiny. Am I going to go back next year and go down to the minor leagues and fight 30 times against all these meatheads? Or am I going to take this exit strategy and learn from all these mistakes that I made and the passion that I've learned from, learning about prohibition and some of these things I learned as I was retiring about, how these things affected, public policy and the way people think in society and the whole bit. And I feel like I have the ability to change that and influence sports, the culture of sports by maybe not promoting booze like I would have, 15, 20 years ago and been the first guy at the bar and the last guy leaving. And you know what I mean? And promoting cannabis or hemp-derived CBD products to really take care and really polish off the recovery process. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like, well, you live and you learn and young people do young things. But if you can eliminate some of these mistakes, or at least use that energy to make different mistakes. You're going to make mistakes as long as you're falling forward, but some of the mistakes, they're 10 steps back for most people, and most people don't recover from some of these things. So it's just really about encouraging, promoting a better way of doing things through my mistakes and, the darkness that I've seen. I've seen the opioid crisis firsthand. Multiple teammates and ex opponents, friends outside of the hockey world. I've seen the destruction of opioids. So I want to be on the right side of history and be part of the solution. I also see the mental health crisis. There's so much anxiety and depression. They're two separate things: opioid crisis and this anxiety and this lack of definite purpose and identity. I want to help part of that, and I'm obsessed with the brain. I'm obsessed with the function of the brain. I'm also obsessed with the spiritual element of the brain and promoting, a proper environment for our headspace and, just promoting positivity and, training the subconscious to, essentially create whatever you want it to create. And, most people don't think like that. And you realize how shallow of thinkers we are until you, and I say this in a modest way, until you actually increase your consciousness and your vibration, because I was once there. I don't judge. I just want to help these people. I realize that we can keep going on next level forever. But it's being conscious enough to recognize, our daily behaviors and have the discipline to implement the change. And I think that's the challenge for most, is the discipline. We all know the answers deep down. The answers are all inside of us. I can ask a 2-year-old, what's healthier for you, this apple or the Snickers bar? Well, they know the apple is better for them, but they're going to choose a Snickers bar because it just tastes better. It's, it's industrialized sugar, and it's addictive. You know what I mean? And that goes on to your adolescence, to, you know, all the way through, you know, early adulthood, through, you know, if you don't nip it in the butt, at some point it will control you forever. You know what I mean? And you know the answer, but it's taking action and executing is the challenge for most, if I find.
There's this really interesting tension, right? So as a fighter in hockey, right, as an enforcer, you were literally fighting, right? And yet the transition you made came at a point where you said, I'm tired of fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And that fight happened, I'm sure, internally as much as externally, right? Every fight that we have, and we know this from being in the ring, like you're fighting inside as much as you are outside. What was that? I don't know if it's transition like, or if the question is that there's a wear and tear that happens internally that we don't see. And it's not just the brain damage potentially. It's not just the physical internal damage, but there's this emotional and spiritual damage of fighting like that for so long. What was that like? And maybe what was your growth through that period?
Yeah, you know, I kind of call it like an ego death, or a partly an ego death. It's this fabricated identity of, well, not just being a hockey player, but you're something bigger than that. You know, now you're like the quote unquote superhero, or the enforcer, the guy that's going to protect. And, you know, it's kind of this like bigger than life role.
Yeah.
But it's a job, and it pays the bills. And for me, that was the conduit for me to make the NHL and play, you know, play professionally in the highest league in the world and live my childhood dream. I never planned on being a fighter or being that guy. So, you know, having the identity of a hockey player your whole life, like I was always known as the hockey player, you know, Riley, I play hockey player, this and that. And then eventually when I turned pro, it was like, oh, Riley the fighter, you know, the meathead. And you know, I was still the hockey player meathead. And so that, you know, that identity has been with me for forever. And when you retire, all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm not that anymore. So what am I? And am I just going to live the rest of my life being known as that? You know, a job I did till the age of 28, and that's what it's going to define me for the rest of my life. I mean, so I think I struggle with, because it comes with a lot of good things too. Don't get me wrong. You know, you play at the highest level. You know, people coming at you all over the place. There's a lot of people giving you stuff. A lot of people trying to take your money and hands in your pocket. But you get a lot of perks that come along with it. So the life is good, and probably too good for most, because it, you know, it influences a lot of, you know, negative behavior patterns, because it's too glorious. You know what I mean? And so all of a sudden it's like, boom, it's over. Not only, you know what I mean, it's like these things are gone. It's like, well, you're no longer that guy on that team. And, you know, I think for me, I was, I say lucky. I think I found myself pretty damn quickly, because I knew that I had to make change. And I knew, you know, I trusted once I started making change, things will kind of fall into place. And it's like your vibe attracts your tribe. As I started doing more and more things in line with my divine being and in line with healing and Mother Nature, I started surrounding myself with people in those types of spaces. And, you know, naturally those become my network. And, you know, so I kind of quickly created my own new network of people, or, you know, a team, you know, a little sub team, or whatever you want to call them. Which most guys, I find, once they leave that team environment, they're so used to being on a team and somebody on a team that everyone recognizes. All of a sudden, like, that's gone. That resource is kind of gone. And, you know, your shoulder hurts, you just go walk down the hallway to the medical staff and get an opinion. Like, that's gone. No one really cares about you anymore. So I recognize that. I think I dealt with that pretty good, because I haven't gone to see back. I haven't seen one of these doctors since I left there in 2010. I kind of took it upon myself to heal myself and take all these things that I had done to myself. No one else did them. You know, I got punched in the face, you know, 300-400 times. Yeah, the guy that punched me, but I am the one that engaged in the fight. It was on my own doing. So again, going back to accountability, I have to be honest with it. I could have some long-term damage. I'm trying to mitigate that. And that's what my whole thing is like brain health, and, you know, on the science level, promoting it from a nutritional and a healing standpoint, from the cannabis to CBD, but also really about the way I think. And all these things that I had done throughout my career, I feel like I needed to to address. And it's still, I mean, it's not just done. It's not like you just like, okay, I'm done. I'm done my healing. I'm moving on now, guys, you know? So this is forever. It's this constant growth, and I'm obsessed with it. But I think I was just, you know, blessed to have found, you know, my calling to some degree early. You know what I mean? I didn't know exactly how it was going to look 6, 7, 8 years. No one does. But I believed in something powerful, and I just rolled with the energy, and it's evolved in something so much bigger than it originally started, and it's brought me, you know, in touch with so many awesome people, including yourself and like-minded people, you know. And I never had these conversations before. You know, it was about partying, you know, and girls and this, you know, and stupid stuff. You know, it didn't matter, you know. And how many grams of protein did you get yesterday? You know, it's like, what is that? You know, it's like, I look back and I'm like, geez, I was that shallow, you know, I was that guy. But, you know, I don't judge. I learned to kind of not be so hard on myself, even though it's hard not to be sometimes, because I'm, you know, disciplined and have standards and high ones. But like, you look back and it's just part of the, you know, the process. You just got to be good with it, you know, and say like, at least I found my way, and I can use my darkness, my story to help others is really what I've discovered in all this.
Where do you usually start when you're working maybe with a younger athlete and they are going through any number of the mental health challenges that come with competitive sport, right? Is there and everybody's unique. So maybe the right question isn't, is there a particular place you start, but are there common themes that you see that really do create a situation where an athlete is going to be that mental health is not going to be strong enough to allow them to sustain what they may want, or there's an incongruence with what they're trying to do internally and externally? Like we're just starting to hit this tip of the iceberg around mental health for athletes, and it seems like it still is taken for granted as to just how critical this is to health, wellness, and sustained success.
Yeah, you know, and it's somewhat complicated, because a lot of these guys, I mean, I coached, you know, in the minor leagues. They're all the best player coming out of junior hockey or college hockey. They're always the go-to guy. And all of a sudden, you know, now they become, you know, a smaller fish in a bigger pond, and they have less of a role. And it ends up being a confidence issue. It's like, okay, well, I used to play 25 minutes, you know, the last 3 years and put up, you know, this amount of numbers. Now, you know, coach doesn't even play me 7 minutes. So they struggle with this, you know, it's an identity crisis, the temporary identity crisis. They don't understand, or they're not patient enough with the development process. But, you know, and in turn, you know, so it's again, it is an identity crisis where it's like, okay, I was the go-to goal scorer. Now I'm a fourth line checker for penalty killer for a year. And if you have the right mindset, I'll build myself up. And that's kind of it, is getting back to basics and getting back to accountability, and say all you can control as an athlete or as a human being is, well, your behaviors, how hard you work, your attitude, how you show up to the rink every day. And over time, if you do the right things, you know, the coach should be on your side. You know what I mean? He should see value in you. You should see growth in you. And, you know, you'll get a bigger role going into maybe the next season. Again, or it can go the other way. And if you don't control those things, well, you're going to have, you know, you're probably going to be one of those players that says, well, the coach hates me, and you know, I just don't get along with the coach. And because you're not buying into the little things that you should be doing as an individual, as a performer anyways, that you're not, because you think you're better than you are. And I think those are generally the conversations you have. It's all, man, Johnny's 20 years old. He's a 20-year-old rookie at the pro, you know, in the pro leagues. He's not playing very well. He's down on himself. He's, you know, the coach is hard on him. He's not, you know, he's whatever. And then really kind of just saying, okay, well, are you showing up? Are you showing up to the rink on time? Are you the first guy there? Are you putting in extra? Are you doing all these things that other people are seeing you become a better person and athlete? And I think over time, if you do those things, I mean, success is around the corner somewhere down the line, whether it's at that organization or another, that someone else believes in you. But if you're going to sit there and think that you're maxed out because you put up 90 goals in the junior hockey league the year before, well, it's like, you know, it's really kind of changing the way these guys think a little bit. But outside of that, it's like it's kind of giving them a different perspective on it, and them executing it. But it's nothing more than personal growth. I mean, it's like if you become a better person, better athlete, well, naturally you should have a more significant role on a team. It takes time sometimes, you know. It's just sometimes guys' physical bodies aren't mature enough. sometimes their minds aren't mature enough. You know what I mean? Again, they're making in the hockey world stupid mistakes. You know what I mean? Not knowing not what to cut their loss with the puck and stuff like that. And once you get to the pro ranks, it's like you mentioned it earlier. It's just like every little mistake impacts your next game, your ice time, how long your shelf life might be in an organization. Keep making the same mistakes, they'll just get rid of you, or they'll send you down to the minors. So every play does have a consequence, good, bad, or indifferent. So it really is just getting into the mind of the athlete and really believing in himself and taking control and taking care of what he can control, and then the rest takes care of itself. Because you can't control the coach thinks, only by your behaviors, and you can't control the GM things, only by your behaviors. At the end of the day, if you're not good enough as a hockey player, at least you'll have character. At least you'll be known to have character, and that will go way outside the hockey world into the real world all day long.
There's this really just interesting is not the right word. I keep using that word, but confidence, right? I think a lot of times we think of confidence and we view it as externally or what we perceive confidence to be in somebody else. We view it as this very specific externalization of a certain energy. And what I hear from you and what I think we're learning is that the authentic kind of confidence that really gives you the ability to push from the place that isn't trying to prove something, that's just about growth and just about your development, is a much different kind of confidence. Yet we so often identify one as the other or vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think, confidence typically comes with preparation. Right? I mean, if no matter what, I mean, I feel like I'm a decent public speaker when it comes to talking about certain subjects. But if you ask me to talk about financial advising and put me up in front of 100 people, I mean, I wouldn't know where to start. I have zero confidence because I'm not prepared. I'm not trained, and I think in sports, understanding the process of developing athletes and kind of the hierarchy of how it works is important, because you have to know that to understand where you need to go. So I just think everyone wants to get to the end goal like immediately. They forget about the process and they worry about the end result. And I had my one favorite professional hockey coach was John Stevens, and his whole thing was, worry about the process. I remember him like bringing ingredients and making a cake is one of his little demo things. To prove one of his points. It's like, you got all these different ingredients and you mix them all together and you have this end result. But you need to focus on the ingredients and the process first. And I think we lose sight of that. Everyone wants, hit the home run right off the bat, or be the all-star without having to be the fourth liner. And it's humbling, and the guys that deal with it the best, the guys, that I've seen that are the true professionals that land up having the longest careers, as long as they can stay healthy physically, because they accept the process, they're patient with it, and they control their destiny by just how hard they're working their attitude.
So again, the question that comes up that's so cool is like, how do you know when to fight and when not to fight?
Well, the game's changed. Are you talking about in real hockey fights?
Both. All of the above.
Well, my strategy in hockey would not be the same strategy I'd have in the real world. I mean, I've been in two fights outside of hockey my whole life. There before I even took on the role of the enforcer. I mean, I'm a peaceful guy. I really, if I can avoid confrontation, especially physical confrontation, I would. I mean, it's for more than one reason. I mean, it's like you just really can't win. You'll get some anger out and some aggression out, but it's usually going to be negative. There's going to be a lawsuit. There's going to be jail. There's going to be something, or someone retaliating and threatening your family to some degree. It's just like, again, it's energy. It's just bad. To me, it's just bad vibes. It's not the way I was taught to deal with it. For hockey, it was a job, it was a role. I mean, I was role playing, so I needed to act crazy. I needed to engage in confrontation. But obviously there was some timing involved on when I didn't do it. So if I was, for example, like on the road in Pittsburgh playing against the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they're, and we're up 2-0 and they're tough guys trying to fight me, well, I'm not going to give them momentum. So that would be a time I would, say go beat it, or make me fight you. And they would have to actually do something, to my teammates to engage in a fight. But, on the other hand, if we're in Philly and we're down 2 goals, I'm the guy looking for a fight. I need the momentum. I need the spark. So there was nothing more than that. I mean, my job was to protect teammates, but also to create energy when the time was needed. So, I think now the fights aren't physical ones. It's like, I engage in, in real fights in life. It's just like fighting for human rights and environmental rights. And a lot of the things I engage in now are naturally, advocating for better health and wellness of all people, including the environment, including, local economics. I'm trying to help shift the way we do essentially everything. You know what I mean? It's like we're at a point now. There is a raised consciousness in this planet, and I think collectively, we're transitioning. Maybe from fossil fuels or these negative energies to more positive, sustainable energies, and naturally the same thing goes for public health. We're transitioning from this synthetic, artificial, industrialized food system to back to, supporting the local farmer with whole foods. And we're going from this archaic, pharmaceutical model to, cannabis, hemp, and these other, natural healing plants are useful, and we can, integrate those. So, it's there is a shift happening. I wish it was quicker. But, I think that's just the way it's always been. You know what I mean? There's always been information suppressed and people suppressed and oppressed. And that's just, part of the agenda. I think it's always been. It's just kind of went from the Roman Empire type deal to wherever it landed up in the middle of that to, this American Empire thing. And it's politics is about business. And some people suffer in the name of it. And most people do, you know what I mean? It's most of these laws and business, setups, legal setups are really designed to keep a certain amount of people rich and in power, and really kind of the rest of the people kind of take the brunt of it, unfortunately. So we still live in a free world where we do have the ability to carve out our own destiny. I never, experienced some of the real true poverty like some of these people grow up in. I know it's tough to get out. I still truly believe if, these people can understand the way the mind operates and understand, the corporate conditioning, they can, get out of that funk. But, it's challenging. But if you at least help 1 or 2 people along the way, and again, help them change the way they think, that's the seed that needs to be planted, is just getting in people's heads that make them understand. It's, there's a lot of misinformation. If a lot of information on diet, a lot of information on medicine, but if you can just reel it in and understand your mind, how to control your mind, I think everything else kind of falls into place. And I really do. And, I lived it, and it's, I believed in something. I really believed in myself, first of all, and then believed in this is the way I'm going to heal. And I didn't have any previous education in that. I grew up in a family that, that promoted all the same things that the rest of society promotes. Is that, cannabis is bad, and this is good, and this is bad, this is good, and the structured way of life. And sometimes you got to take a leap of faith and just go with what your gut is, and start reading outside the box type of information. And once you do, it's amazing what's out there.
So there's 2 questions that come up here. And the first one is, is that ability to leap, whatever the leap may be, right? So that could be something small relative, could be something giant, and it could be earth shattering in terms of worldview, could be a risk, could be whatever. What has in your life given you that sense that it's time to leap? How has it felt in your body?
I've recently gone through one of these moments. It was in the last year and a half, but it's just, it is your gut. It just, when something doesn't feel right and that there's a better way type of deal. I think that's the simplest way I can describe it. It's just a feeling of this is not satisfying to my soul long term, and I need to adjust it to find that. So, for example, myself, when I retired in 2010, I got into the coaching, as I mentioned. Done that for 7 years, 4 years in upstate or in Glens Falls, New York, and then 3 in Allentown, Pennsylvania, when the team moved and they built a brand new facility. So, all along, I had been advocating for hemp and wellness and nutrition and all these things. I say quasi quietly. I wasn't like broadcasting every little thing I did on social media as far as cannabis went, because I was still employed by corporate sports. So eventually, it was probably around 2015, 2016. The passion for healing was certainly outweighing my passion for coaching and hockey. I can assure you that there's no spiritual growth in coaching. There's no real true personal development. I didn't find I was I know I was an assistant coach and I could have become a head coach, but I don't know. I just sensed that there was something so much bigger out there than, taking care of 23-man roster, where I could, essentially have an influence on so much more and so many more people, because I wouldn't have to have this barrier of silence or where corporate sports can kind of dictate what I can and can't say. So eventually I got overly comfortable with, my position and not really caring about the consequences. And that was when I said, okay, well, I'm going to start being aggressive with some of the stuff I post and start just putting it out there, putting my belief system out there, my philosophy out there. And, kind of like the Batman, the bat symbol, and seeing how people respond or who responds. Well, eventually I got enough balls where I got in front of the Flyers alumni. It was 2 summers ago. And it was about 45 of them. And I presented Cannabis 101, Hemp 101, just kind of the difference between hemp, drive, CBD, and the medical cannabis program, Pennsylvania laws, New Jersey laws, because that's where most guys live in the area. And I did it with Lindy Snyder, who's the daughter of Ed Snyder, who owned the Flyers. So pretty powerful. And got unbelievable feedback. Got 45 minutes of just education and kind of storytelling and the whole bit. Gave them all samples of the CBD products after. Great response the next morning. The next day was the Flyers annual golf tournament, Flyers alumni. And then the following day, I got a phone call from the general manager saying, we're gonna head in a different direction. You're no longer part of the Flyers and Phantoms organization. I was like, well, what happened since 3 weeks ago when we sat down face to face and I was coming back and everything? And he kind of hummed and hawed and said, we're just going a different direction. So I knew my actions 2 days before obviously influenced their decision to not move forward with me, which was kind of again, me waving the flag, again, putting myself out there in a position where I didn't want to quit. I'm not a quitter, so I wasn't just going to just quit a job, which is most people would be foaming at the mouth for a job like that, an American Hockey League and working your way up. But for me, it was just I just don't see any more growth for me. I need to make a move in life, and I need to influence something. And that was the way I did it. But that day, I kind of put my stake in the ground and said, this is me. And in turn, the Flyers got rid of me, but it forced me to go on my own to do what I was thinking about for so long. So, it was one of those things. It was a feeling, and then I acted on the feeling. Again, I could have just went into the general manager's office like, hey, I'm out of hockey. I'm quitting. I'm going to go in the cannabis space. But I just pushed the boundaries because I wanted to do what was right. I wanted to help my fellow brethren out. If I could have had it my way, I would have, really been pushing this on the players and stuff like that. But I knew I would have gotten fired way before that and not even had that opportunity to get in front of the alumni. So I kind of played my cards the way I wanted to play them, knowing very well that somewhere down the line that would have happened, and it did, and I'm thankful for it. I got no hard feelings. I needed that to, put me out there on my own in the real world, and and find my real self in the business side of things. Where do I want to really be as a businessman? Do I want to be employed by corporate sports and working this job from the outside looks like a great job, but really not being happy inside and not really being fulfilling my my inner being? So that all worked out, but it was all because of, again, cause and effect. I mean, I knew what I was doing. I knew it would have a ripple somewhere down the line, and it did. And it put me where I needed to be.
So What has your journey been like with self-love?
Oh man, it's that the day I retired, it was all about self-love. The self-respect and the self-love was the main pillar of it all. It was, I realized that everything I was doing was not involving self-love or respect. I mean, again, I was mindlessly consuming calories and animal protein and having no connection to my food. I was mindlessly, consuming caffeine and alcohol. I mean, you know what I mean? And not understanding how much destruction, more so the alcohol, was having on my spirit. And I was mindlessly just taking the doctor's advice and not questioning it, and taking sleeping pills and all these things. And again, my tribe was usually hanging out at the bar or the club. It's like, to me, as I reflected on all these things, that was the biggest thing I realized. There was no self-love. There was no self-respect. And that was the one thing that I was dedicated to do, is like self-mastery, self-love, and everything I was going to do, for the most part. Hey, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm by no means perfect. And that I was going to dedicate to the better well-being of myself, to kind of make up for these years of destruction. So it was all about that. So it's, again, naturally started with the diet, and then I got into yoga. I said, I've been lifting weights for so long and stressing my joints out. You talk about self-respect and putting a premium on like what we're trying to get out of life. And I just wanted to feel good. I don't want to be sore and stiff every morning. So again, I went the other opposite direction, went towards yoga, and then I got into meditation. Everything I did, and started reading, feeding my mind and feeding my spirits. Everything I did was about that. It was always in line with self-respect and self-love. And so to answer your question, it's everything I do. I mean, it's a huge part of my life. I mean, from the minute I wake up, it's now always, I say always about me. It's, I need to take care of myself. I say fit to serve, so I can help my family. If I help my family, I can help outside of my family. But if I can't take care of myself and I have no self-love and self-respect, it's hard to teach that. I mean, it's generally something you see in somebody. You know what I mean? It is an energy, because, typically you can see it in the way they look, or at least somewhat in the way they look. But then if you can't, you can see it in the way they act and the way they talk too. I mean, so you can only get away with the smoke and mirrors of, talking the big talk. And if you're not walking it, most people see right through it. So I mean, I need to live it to teach it. And for that to be my business, I need to stay on top of it. But outside the business, it's me first. And I think now I've just recognized how to piece the business around my way of life.
It's powerful. Wow. Riley, before I ask my final question, where can these guys go to connect with you online?
I am on Instagram at Riley Cote, RILEECOYOTE. Same thing for Twitter, and then Riley Cote on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn as well. And athletesforcare.org. And hempulosfoundation.com, bodycheckwellness.com, check with a CHEK, no C in there. So more to come. Just I feel like I'm just getting going too. I got a lot of momentum going right now, but I just feel like I'm just scratching the surface, because again, there's so much to teach, but there's so many elements going into self-love and finding identity and finding definite purpose. But it all starts with your daily thoughts, daily behaviors, and it's forever. This is going to be a part of me forever, and this is going to keep growing. So I know my tribe's going to grow, and my network's going to grow, and I'm just looking forward to what the world has in store, without being anxious and being too focused on the future. I'm focused on now, but I just know it's a feeling. It's just a feeling. You just know things are working out and the stars are aligning, and that's how I feel right now. I felt that way. I think I've always felt that way, even when I was in my mindless years, because I had the right attitude. I was just doing things wrong. I feel like now I still got the right attitude, but now I feel like I'm in line with doing things right, and slowly but surely the pieces kind of are falling where they need to fall. So
it's an energizing tension, and I can feel it. So this show is called Omni Athlete, right? Because it's our quest to understand what it takes to be the ultimate mind, body, and spirit competitor. So the final question of the show, Riley, is what does being an Omni Athlete mean to you?
Well, you know what? This is certainly in line with my philosophy. You know, I wish Omni Athlete was around when I was younger. You know what I mean? I think, you know, shoulda, woulda, coulda, and I mentioned I would have never gone back. But, you know, this type of platform is exactly how I teach and in the philosophy that I teach. And it's really promoting that mindfulness and being in tune with your body and really that connection that is really not taught in sports. No corporate sports organization is really teaching that. I know in baseball, I've read that they have some mindfulness coaches, but you know, it's kind of like pushed away in the back in a corner. Where I think this type of conversation needs to be more, you know, in the forefront, because God knows that, you know, if you're mentally sound, you're going to perform at a much higher level. So this type of platform is so in line with my being now. You know what I mean? Because, you know, this is the way I can teach from my experience, because I was always driven, but I wasn't mindful. And I think, you know, being conscious and in tune with your body and your mind, all these things, again, they're going to add longevity to your career. And then when you transition out of the game, you're going to have a head start into the real world, because you're going to already understand yourself a little bit. You know, sports is just your job. You know, if you even get that far and to get paid for it. Outside of that, you have to discover who you are. And, you know, I think you can discover who you are while you're playing sports. I don't think you have to pick one or the other. For me, it just consumed me. And, you know, again, part of it was the fighting that consumed me, and, you know, being crazy. And, you know, that was kind of what helped create that identity. But that doesn't exist unless, you know, even in fighting, UFC and stuff like that. Like, these guys are calm. These guys are going in a fight just perfectly trained athletic machines. Like, they're mindful as they come. Martial arts, discipline, the whole bit. You know, and you get into other sports, it's nothing more than a mindset. So to me, the more you can train the mind and the more you can have control over the mind and not worry about circumstance, or, you know, not get affected by, you know, performance anxiety and pressures, you're going to be naturally a better athlete and naturally a better, worker in the real world, because you don't let outside influence affect you as much as the next guy. So this platform is certainly in line with my current and future views on sports and performance, because the mind is everything. You know, I've seen so many Greek god type bodies just dissolve, disappear, or never make it, because guess what? I mean, it's great, but, you know, you haven't trained your mind. You know, if you can spend half the time on your mind and you spend on your physical body, you'd be well ahead. But I mean, I think there needs to be more and more mindfulness taught, and there is. You know, even like my last couple of years, we had more of a mindfulness guy around, at least someone to bounce some ideas off. It's still kind of like, you know, not taboo, but, you know, it's still, you know, getting its legs. But more and more guys, there's so many resources, so much money spent on player development, you know, so there's more money invested in players now than ever. So you better get your head on straight.
This has been incredible, Riley. Thank you for being on the show. Oh my gosh, guys, go dive as deep into Riley's world as you possibly can. And whether it's checking out the work he's doing with the Hemp Heals Foundation, Athletes for Care, or the products he's got with Body Check Wellness, the moment you step into Riley's world, one of the things you're going to grab immediately is just this level of authenticity around both what we can be as human beings and how we can bring that to express itself in the world with our story, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. And as athletes, a lot of times we have darkness that we don't really understand what to do with. Mm-hmm. And one of the most energizing pieces of Riley's work is he just gives you a path to say, it doesn't have to hide in the corner, right? There's beauty and light and darkness in all sides of this. So dive into his world, check out the work he's doing. And until next time, thank you for watching this episode of Omni Athlete. Hey, what is up, guys? Thank you for watching another episode of Omni Athlete. Please go like and subscribe to our podcast. That is our goal right now, is just to build this community as big as we possibly can, and we need your help to do it. So like and subscribe, share our content, guys. If this content adds any value to your world, that helps you perform, connect, go deeper, go wider, whatever it is that it does for you, if it provides value, all we ask is that you share our content and help grow this community. We can't accomplish our goal of elevating global consciousness through sport without you. You are an integral part of this mission and this purpose, and we need your help. So please go like, subscribe, and share our content. and continue to help us build and grow this community that is truly motivated to not just elevate consciousness, but elevate and shift the very culture of sport so that we can truly experience the athletic experience in a brand new and energizing way for so many people, guys. So thank you, and please like and subscribe. Until next time.